Ms. Voss, let the record show that we started this budget workshop at exactly 9:06 a.m. on June the 19th, 2018. Mr. Administrator, let's get started.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Today, of course, is your June budget workshop, and at this point in the process, I'll just remind you that the board has provided lots of policy guidance and specific direction in the development of the FY19 budget to this point. As in recent years, this June workshop is the time that I provide you with a tentatively balanced budget and seek your direction on any other budgetary or fiscal policy issues that this board would like to have addressed in the final budget. And as not to bury the lead, let me start by saying that as discussed in your individual briefings and based on the policy guidance provided at your April 24th budget workshop, the preliminary budget is 262.5 million. This represents just a slightly less than a 3.5% increase over the FY18 budget. And Commissioners, again, just to hit the highlights, the budget is tentatively balanced with no increase in the millage rate for the 7th consecutive year. It reflects increased property values of 5.6% countywide, which is just slightly more than we had anticipated back in April. It continues to reflect modest growth in sales tax and other revenues based on an improving economy. It continues to include significant cost savings and avoidances identified through our organization-wide internal efforts. It reflects a 20% or $500,000 reduction in the use of fund balance to balance the budget. That's down to $2 million from a high of $5 million used at the height of the recession. And Commissioners, let me just underscore this. It's very important. We'd like to get that fund balance to zero. It also reflects an increase in general revenue support to capital. That's also very important and a sign of good things. We've got the transfer to capital up to $5 million in recurring support to capital. Again, during the economic decline, we used an increased use of fund balance, and we decreased capital and drew down revenues. And of course, during an improving economy, we are restoring those, putting the county in the best possible position for what is always an uncertain future in our world. And on that note, the budget sets aside $1 million, the $1 million reduction in the CRA payment in a reserve account to assist, as you know, Commissioners, with balancing the budget if the additional $25,000 homestead exemption passes in November. But it also reflects, this tentatively balanced budget, Commissioners, also reflects our abiding sensitivity to lessening the financial burden on our citizens relative to the services that they need. As such, the budget reflects a reduction of 24% in our EMS fees, which will save customers approximately $800,000 annually. Regarding new positions, Commissioners, it says about everything you could say about the extraordinary budget constraint that we continue to exercise, and that we are adding just 2 positions countywide. One, a water quality engineer to assist with implementing over $17 million in septic to sewer projects, and 1 park attendant for the considerable expansion of parks and green spaces, including the Appalachia Regional Park facilities. Commissioners, those are the highlights of the budget. Again, I know I've had discussions with each of you, and you're very familiar with it. Alan will go into a little bit more detail in just a few minutes, but that's sort of the budget at a glance version. Commissioners, as you can see, this budget takes a continued fiscally conservative approach. But I do believe the tentative budget enables us to continue to be able to provide high quality services to our citizens and allow us to continue to address the highest priorities of the board and the obligations of the county government to our community. In the early stages of the budget development process, Commissioners, we informed the board that we are just beginning to get to a place in our post-recession economy where slowly increasing property values are allowing us to build back reserves, to lessen our use of fund balance, as I mentioned, to increase our transfer to capital, and to adequately fund the inflationary costs of government. And I can't sort of overstate this, Commissioners, we're just beginning to return to normal growth. It's only the second year, I'll remind you, it's only the second year where we began our budget process where we didn't start in millions of dollars in deficit position. So I can't stress that enough, that after more than a decade of economic decline and very, very slow growth that has followed, it's going to take us some time to get us back organizationally to where we need to be fiscally. But we are on track, and thanks to your good guidance, we're getting there. Commissioners, before we transition into the remainder of today's agenda, I want to remind the board that we are scheduled from 9 till 3 today. I'm sure we won't need all this time, but we do have several discussion items for your consideration. Based on your guidance today, we will prepare a budget ratification for your July 10th meeting. Subsequent to your July 10 meeting, we will prepare a tentative budget for your September public hearings, of course. Commissioners, there is a placeholder for another budget workshop in July, should you need it. However, I anticipate that the additional workshop will not be needed, but of course it's there should the board deem it necessary or helpful based on the outcome of today's discussions. Transitioning to the budget itself, Commissioners, at your April budget workshop, I'll just remind you that we informed you at that time that ONB had not performed their departmental and capital project budget reviews at that point in time. Also, we did not have our constitutional officer budget requests at that time. In addition, we did not at that time have our official property values estimates. But since that time, we've developed the budget that's before you based upon final OMB revenue estimates and expenditure recommendations, our final constitutional officer submissions, and the property appraiser's official property tax values. In total, since your last workshop in April, Commissioners, we have our estimated revenues exceed expenditures by $500,000, as I've mentioned to you in your individual briefings, and as we indicated at your April meeting, in keeping with our continuous efforts to ensure the long-term financial viability of the county, this budget contemplates using those dollars, the $500,000, to continue to reduce the use of recurring fund balance, taking it from the $2.5 million we showed in April to $2 million in the tentative budget before you. In summary, Commissioners, the budget continues to again reflect fiscal constraint in our own budgetary growth. It adds only 2 positions, as I've mentioned before, and positions the county to remain fiscally viable into the future. And Commissioners, the balance of your budget discussion items presented today are funded. They're contemplated in your recommended budget. I do want to take a moment, Commissioners, before I transition to Alan, again, to start us with the budget discussion items and the budget overview, just a moment to thank our staff for their dedication, their innovative efforts, and their ideas that are essential to us in maintaining a high-performing organization. I can't stress the importance of that enough. So much of that is reflected in the tentative budget before you today. I also need to thank our constitutional officers for their spirit of cooperation in preparing the budget that is before you. Needless to say, they have a significant impact on the county budget, and we enjoy an excellent working relationship with them, and which is something that I very, very much appreciate. And Commissioners, again, a big thanks to you all, to the board, for the difficult deliberations and the good guidance in the development of not only this budget, but in the work that you do year-round and the consistent fiscal oversight and direction you provide in the interest of the long-term fiscal health of the county. Before I hand it off to Alan to present the budget, I want to note that the first budget discussion item, Commissioners, we may be able to dispense with that pretty quickly. It's your county's strategic plan update. We bring this to you twice a year, once now, and at your annual retreat. But in summary, you'll see that we're on track to meet our 5-year bold goals and targets. We've completed 62%, or 36 out of our 58 strategic initiatives. And your agenda materials contain all the supporting details on that. We're happy to answer any questions you might have on any of those. But in the interest of time today, I'm prepared now to hand it off to Alan to provide the budget detail overview. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll pause and again, we're prepared to hand it off and continue, but let me pause, Mr. Chairman, in case there's anything else you'd like to do.
Thank you. So ruled earlier. Is there any introductory comments from the commission? Commissioner Daley?
For item number 1, I'll go ahead and make the motion for option number 1 for the staff recommendation in regards to the status report on the fiscal year 2017-2021 strategic plan and update.
Commissioner Daley has made a motion for option number 1. It's been seconded by Commissioner Lindley. Any more comments? All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Commissioner Proctor out of chambers. Commissioner Deloach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a logistics question. So this is the year you talk about we're back to almost back to center. You know, if you look at the downturn, let's fast forward going from here. Let's talk about what Mike. I'm just trying to look. If assuming for grins that the property values continue to increase at the rate they are, I'm hoping we get to a point where we can start to pare back and not ride that back up like we did the first go around. I think that's the trap everybody fell into when the market roared, was we just said, well, look at all this, and then when it fell out, we had to pay the price. I'm just thinking at some point we start to delineate there, don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, can you give me?
Yeah, sure. To address that, Commissioner Deloach, I think it's an important point. You know, I always say that, you know, if there was a silver lining in the Great Recession and the slowly improving economy that followed, is we made certain things institutional here at the county government in the way that we approach our budgeting. So the slide, so to speak, is really not that easy. Our year-round continuous internal efforts to identify cost avoidances and efficiencies continue really with the same rigor that they did when revenues were very, very hard to come by, and we were in a perennial case of dealing with double-digit millions in deficits each year due to declining property values. Again, we're just beginning to see. You see a little less than 5 or a little more than 5.5% property value growth this year, which is still pretty conservative. We don't count on very much more than that's just our normal sunny disposition as the way that we approach the budget. We don't count on very much more than that into the future. In fact, we sort of, plan for what could be a cyclical financial condition, which some would say we're already due. And I don't say these things out loud, but already due for another financial slowdown. Some would say that we're overdue for one again. So I don't think you run any risk of that from our standpoint. You'll continue to see the same budget discipline that again, it's institutional. It's just the way that we do things. And Alan will probably hit on a little bit more on our revenue forecasting in terms of what we expect to see.
I guess my point is, the downturn made us lean and mean and really forced us to address some things that we might not have in better times. I don't want to lose that efficiency, and as we start to come out of this, I want to make sure we kind of keep that same kind of mentality, which is, look, just because it's there doesn't mean we should be spending it. So.
And as you can see, we're not even where we would like to be yet from the big sort of the big sort of swings in the budget that we look at. We look at what our use of fund balance is. We'd like to get that to zero. We're now tentatively balanced at $2 million. We'd like to get our recurring capital up to $10 million. We're now at $5 million. And so we're not fully restored relative to our policy minimums in all of our fund balances. We'd like to get that. But after over a decade of drawing those things down and increasing use of recurring fund balance, that sort of thing, like I said, it's going to take us some time just to get us back to where we'd like to be as a starting place.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any more comments from commissioners? Alan?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thanks, Vince. And just very quickly, Vince spent some time walking through some of the details where we're at this point. Just to remind you, you've been working on the budget since last December. It probably just feels like yesterday to some of you. It does to me. We're going to go through a lot of details today, but overall, You've spent a lot of time on the budget to date. You had a policy workshop back in April. Prior to that, you actually set your discretionary funding levels consistent with your ordinance back in February. And going back earlier than that, you actually had a calendar adoption for transparency to the public of how your process was going to work. Vince talked about we're coming back with the ratification and finally your public hearings. And then, yes, we get to start all over again in December. So we'll all be looking forward to that. Quickly, Vince kind of touched on this briefly. The budget is $262.4 million, $4.6 million, about a 3.5% increase over last year. In aggregate, we had about a $500,000 swing since your April workshop. And consistent with all the previous guidance and trying to position ourselves best for the future, you've heard this probably the third time today, we've put that and reduced the use of fund balance. Ideally, we'd like to get that to zero, and at the recession peak, we were at $5 million. And remind you, prior to the recession, we were at zero. That's where we want to get to. Commissioners, we spent a lot of time on this in your April workshop, where we do deal with cost avoidances, and throughout the organization throughout the year. We presented a lot of detail at that point in time and gave you a lot of specifics. Again, they're containing your workshop materials, about $1.3 million this year alone. And we didn't put the number on the screen, but since 2013, that number is pushing almost $30 million in cost avoidance and savings, and we do have all the details in your materials. Diving a little into the details now, and again, we have much more than this containing your materials. We have spreadsheets and charts and graphs on all of the major revenues that we've identified, all the analysis supporting them. So if you have any questions on anything specifically, we can spend some time. But the sheet in front of you, which is in your materials, is just a high-level summary of the major revenues. The property tax set at the current rate, no increase, will generate about $6.9 million in additional revenue. We'll talk about how we're anticipating using that next year. Our overall, our other general revenues, which is our public services, our sales taxes, et cetera, they're about overall up about 3% over last year. That's kind of what the trend's looking like, a little down since our last workshop. And overall, again, you'll see at the very bottom of that line, we took the fund balance usage down by $500,000. So again, what you see on your screen are reflective of changes, about $7.8 million in overall changes to general revenue. And what did we recommend doing with that? Well, based on your April guidance and based on the longstanding policies of where we want to go in the future, you see the major changes in the budget. Again, all the details in the packet. We have sheets on every departmental budget and all the constitutional requests with all the details. If you start at the beginning, this is supportive of all your constitutional budget officer requests. The first one, of course, which is a large portion of your budget, is the sheriff's budget request. It's funded. We worked very closely with the sheriff again this year in trying to constrain budgetary growth there, focusing on the highest priorities of public safety and the sheriff's where he wants to see that department go. This is the second of a 3-year phase-in plan for 4 sheriff's deputies and 4 law enforcement officers. Correctional officers, and then next year would be the last year of that 3-year plan. We talked about that last year. Instead of trying to put all those in 1 year, we're phasing those in well within budget constraints. And in addition, this provides the next year of funding for their fleet replacement program. As we know, when we got in there and the sheriff was elected, we went through, and one of the big priority was to provide a full replacement of the fleet, which was aged, and our analysis supported that. Oh, yeah, and completely the cooperation, again, and we have some of the gentlemen in the office here today. I think you have Chief Folsom, Chief Harrelson here, obviously under the guidance of the Sheriff McNeil. It's been an incredible working relationship. We talked quite a bit. And all the constitutional officers, that fact, have been very helpful and cooperative throughout this budget process to bring this in balance. As you move down the list, our next largest item of expenses is the costs associated with county government personnel. This is things associated with salaries, benefits, mandated increases in our FRS. If we move down a little further, we've talked about this quite a bit now. We've increased our transfer to capital. Picking up when the administrator said, one of our keys here is not to just grow the budget. This clearly is trying to put us back in a posture where we're taking of the needs of the government long term, where we take care of our maintenance, our roofs, our air conditioners, things of that nature, which aren't very sexy but need to be funded on a recurring basis. Let me just flip here real quick. Again, if you go down here, we talked about this briefly already. We talked about in April, going back all the way to last year, based on the renegotiation on the CRA. We've taken that $1 million. It's set aside. It's available pending the homestead exemption. And not to belabor the details here, but there are other adjustments in here. Funding of many of your strategic initiatives are identified. I think we have 4 of them listed there. We had a significant increase, about $200,000 on our state mandated Medicaid payment. And then the balance of our recommendations are to continue our service levels throughout the organization. Just highlighting what the administrator said, a little more detail, only 2 positions, again, associated with the significant amount of septic and sewer projects we're doing, as well as the expansion of the Appalachia Park based on the implementation of the master plan. We're recommending 1 park attendant to ride herd over there. We've done this several times in the past. It's a good county fiscal policy. We go through periodically, we look at our fund balances in aggregate, we determine if there's balances available to move to capital. This helps us offset the fact that we don't have that transfer up to quite the level we want. It's a good policy, we have it written into yours, and we look at it every year, and we have a $10 million recommendation, and it still maintains all our policy minimums. Lastly, Commissioners, before we get to the recommendations, we do like to highlight, we do an annual survey of all Florida counties. And with our continuous focus on budget constraint and optimization of resources, this kind of reflects how well we continue to compare. As you see on the slide and all the details in your materials, we have the lowest net operating budget of all our like-sized counties. If you want to extrapolate that forward, we have the lowest net budget per resident of our like-sized counties. And last, we are the 2nd lowest number of employees per 1,000 residents. And
We do it with most taxes.
oh yeah, and we do it with some of the most taxes off the roll, with 40% of our taxes off the rolls, which is some of the highest in the state. And then if you compare that to the rest of all Florida counties, we have the 4th lowest net budget per resident, and the other 3 counties that are a little lower than us are Gadsden and Suwannee, which we're fine being where we are, being the 4th lowest. And if you look at it for all the other 67th, we have the 7th lowest number of employees per 1,000 residents. Finally, Commissioners, the recommendation is to accept our overview, and pursuant to your policy, we had a neighborhood request to look at a particular sidewalk. We went through criteria evaluation. We've added the sidewalk to the list. That doesn't mean that sidewalk will be funded next year or even the following year. It might be 5, 7, 8 years to look at, but we keep a running list. It has extensive criteria, engineering analysis, and this particular sidewalk segment has been added to the list, but we don't want anybody to believe that it's leapfrogging or jumping to the front of any priority list at this point in time. So that, Mr. Chairman, that completes my presentation, and then we'd be ready for a motion and back to your discussion items.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Lindley.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to weigh in a little bit on the fact that even though we are coming out of the recession and to some extent successfully, it's our job to make our best case when new expenses come into play. I think the fact that we're responding to the sheriff's requirements or request for additional support in law enforcement is something we've been hearing from our community time and time again. So to me, that's raising some bucks for them. It's pulling some more money for the law enforcement, but that's an important thing, and it's our job to be able to argue that to our voters when that happens. Likewise, the fund balance. It's our savings account, in effect, and when Hurricane Hermine came around, we didn't have to borrow money. We might have had to use that had we not had better planning, and we had help from FEMA, of course, but we need a strong fund balance. The next time something comes around, we may not be able to respond effectively without just draining our savings account, in effect. And I'm sure that's not the terminology that y'all use downstairs, but to me, that's the way it works. Our budget reflects emphasis that we have made all year long. Our jobs creation, support of small businesses, it's a good, strong budget, and we are doing it with very few employees. The cost of employees are going up in healthcare and other such items, but to have the 7th lowest in the state per capita, I don't know if that's good or bad. I think it's good for the citizens. There are probably people on our staff who are saying, man, we are working our buns off every day and we could use a little help. You're not getting it. You're getting 2 new people, an engineer and a park attendant for our wonderful Appalachia Regional Park, which is something, again, our community is going to be loving and is going to bring more people into our community, spending resources. And so in the whole, I think we need to look at it as not just cut back always and save every dime, but make a case for every dime we're spending. And I think this budget is doing very well in that. In the face of a 3rd homestead exemption, which is going to put, to your point, Commissioner Deloge, more pressure on our small businesses. And I think that's a real concern because with, as you said, 40% of our property off the tax roll, our small businesses could argue that they're taking on quite a burden that the homeowners are not subject to. So that is a very big concern. I think we have to keep it top of mind throughout when we talk about our expenditures. And I do, and I think all of us here do pay serious consideration to this. So with those comments, I'm sure others have some things to say, but I would like to make a motion to pass staff recommendation on this budget.
Option 1 and 2 has been moved by Commissioner Lindley, seconded by Commissioner Deloge. Just real quick, I think Commissioner Lindley hit the nail on the head. We should all think that budgets, I read this actually when I first got elected back in 2010, but something to the effect that budget should reflect your priority. And I think with the increases that we see in our budget, it reflects our priority to give our sheriff as much help as we possibly can to make sure he's doing a terrific job in lowering our crime rate. And so I appreciate staff coming back with a budget that looks like this, and I think we do. I think we do a good job of justifying how we spend every dime. I don't think you can find much waste here in Leon County. And when you look at 67 counties in the state of Florida, to say we're 7th, that's pretty outstanding. There's 60 other counties who can't say that they're better than us. And so I like being where we are. Appreciate staff putting in the work that they do and taking pride in our people-focused, people-driven, performance-focused model that we have here in Leon County. Yes, I did get it right. No, I'm sure after this, Vince is going to get it tattooed on me somewhere. But seriously, in all seriousness, I appreciate being here in the job that we do and the fiscal responsibility that this board shows, but also the fiscal responsibility that staff shows too, with the programs that we put together and the job that we do as the Leon County government. I have Commissioner Deloge in queue. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's worth noting, too, just for the general public, we budget almost year-round. This is not a process that we show up one day and say, isn't this great, let's wave our flag over this. For people that look around and see there's not a lot of activity, we don't seem to have a lot of people speaking, because generally we're responding to those kind of things throughout the course of the year. And this is an ongoing process that we chip away at, meet all the statutory requirements, and in the end, look at the number of meetings we've got. I can't keep up, my head spins, but it's a process that works, because over time what happens is you move and meld and you get it to a point where everybody kind of gets most of what they want. So thanks for the hard work. Appreciate it.
I have no other commissioners in queue to speak. I have a motion for staff recommendation made by Commissioner Lindley, seconded by Commissioner Deloge. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Commissioner Proctor's out of chamber. Mr. Administrator?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, that brings us to our first budget discussion item. I'm just going to hit the highlights, but I'm glad Candace joined us at the table to help me out on this one. You may recall, Commissioners, that you requested just back in April that we conduct a gender-based pay equity in Leon County government to determine how we are faring as an organization on this important issue, and we have we've done that. Again, I'm just going to hit the highlights, and Candace is here, her and her shop that conducted this review. But essentially, Commissioners, we conducted an extensive review of the salaries and wages of all 793 county employees to determine whether there were a gender-based pay inequities in our organization. Commissioners, as you will find in this item, the findings of this review indicate that the salaries of male and female Leon County employees organization-wide are nearly equal, with women earning slightly higher median salaries than men, and it revealed no indication of gender pay inequity. Candace told me that it was. Candace told me that it was entirely appropriate. Commissioners, as noted in the materials, Leon County outperforms both Florida and the United States, where women earn 80 to 86% of what men earn statistically. As indicated by the results of the study, Leon County's pay classification plan is designed to ensure that all county employees are equitably compensated and for substantially equal work, regardless of gender or any other classification. Above and beyond minimum requirements for compliance with federal and state law. Commissioners, Leon County has been deliberate in offering a pay plan and overall compensation benefits package that best positions the county to remain competitive in a labor market. So this isn't just about addressing inequities. Importantly, this is about remaining competitive in a labor market, and I think that's an important note. In addition to equity in compensation, at the highest levels of the organization in Leon County, we make a concerted and ongoing effort to maintain a gender balance among department directors and executive level staff. You may note, I didn't know this until we actually counted them up, but of the county's 14 departments, we actually have 7 department directors that are male, 7 department directors that are female. Mm-hmm. In terms of what else we can do, Commissioners, this item recommends excluding information regarding salary history on Leon County employment applications as a best practice. It was just one of those things that we found during the course of this review that some of the organizations that are most serious about addressing this issue do prospectively to address and mitigate any other inequities that may have occurred prior to an employee coming to Leon County. And that disclosing of a previous salary sometimes becomes a starting point for negotiation of a new salary. Mm-hmm. And so some of the again, most progressive organizations that are dealing with this issue are dropping that. Not a lot of them, but we'd like to join the ranks. We think it's a good idea, and we don't think we lose anything by doing that. So we recommend in this item that going forward, we drop the previous history in our employment applications. And Commissioners, let me just, we, staff, Candace, myself, we're available to answer any questions that you might have on this issue. That sort of just hits the highlights. We're recommending options 1 and 2.
It's always good to do a check on these types of things. That Commissioner Proctor asked for it. He'd be very, very proud to know that we do well, very well in this subject. So it would be my honor if Commissioner Dozier or Commissioner Lindley made the motion here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry. Available for questions, you said, Mr. County Administrator, so
Yes.
no further presentation. I would be happy to make a motion for this. I do have a couple of questions also, Mr. Chair.
Shoot.
Well,
I'm all over it.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Deloge, but why don't you second this, because it's something that is good for the whole organization. How about that? Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yes, we have a little fun with this. It is not just about pay equity, but reading through this item, and I do appreciate how you laid it out and the study. And Mr. County Administrator, this will get to one of my questions in a minute, but in our briefing, you talked about staff reviewing, Candace, the various methods to do this type of study. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. But it did bring to mind our discussion last year about the minimum wage. And I think related, and we made some good steps this year, lifting up our minimum wage. But we also talked about advancement for people who may not have as much continuing education within their type of job, things like that. This is about the whole workforce and being competitive, as County Administrator, you said. So it's not just about women, just this one is about women. So I am glad we're digging in. When Commissioner Proctor brought this up, I'm sure you all have been hearing a lot about these studies around the country. So I think we did have a conversation about looking at different types of assessment models for the whole organization, because it is challenging to compare. And I think this comes out in your report, and I wanted to hear just a little bit more about this, to compare jobs and pay rates across an organization that is so phenomenally diverse. A lot of companies may do one thing, and yeah, they may have administrative and a machine shop, whatever it might be, but county government is incredibly diverse. So just, Candace, if you could mention how you looked at, say, those groups that were mostly women or all women, or mostly men or all men, and if there was any, how you assessed those and chose not to include some of them in the study, things like that. Just, I'm curious a little bit about the details.
Sure. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman.
Morning.
We took a very hard look at our organizational structure as part of this. We also took into consideration the HR methodology across the country of how you perform a gender pay-based equity study. And we utilized three different approaches to reviewing that. One was to look at the organization as a whole. And that's where you get that we are really doing a really good job as far as men and women making very similar, almost the same salary. The next phase into that, so that was holistically everyone. The next phase of that was to look at like positions. So what you want to do is look at the positions that are the same to ensure that there's no inequity amongst the individuals in that particular like position. So just to give you an example, like a maintenance tech position, there are a lot of maintenance tech positions. Are there any inequities in those particular areas? And so what we would do is look at years of service, starting salary when they came in, the experience that those individuals had prior to coming to Leon County. All of those factors you take in consideration as you look to see if there is any inequity in those particular areas. And that meant pulling files and different things like that. So we did that review on all of those particular positions in the like area. We were able to justify, if you will, if someone was making slightly more, it was because they had more experience. They've been here 20 years. You can't compare someone's salary that's been here for 20 years to someone just coming into the door. So all of those different factors were taken into consideration as we did the review of the like position. Very similar after we came through, and I don't want to necessarily get into the weeds of that, all of the numbers, but the next way that we looked at the data was to look at positions that were what we call similarly situated. And those are same pay grade, but titles could be different or they could be the same, and they had the same level of responsibility, same level of, same type job. For instance, there may be an engineer in Public Works and an engineer in DSM. We would have compared them just to make sure throughout the organization that there was no pay inequities in that particular manner. And again, everything through that, we were able to look at years of service, education and experience coming in the door, starting salaries, and so at the end of all of that, everything in our organization really looked good. There were no anomalies that we found that we needed to address. So,
And you did, just to clarify, piggyback on, or not piggyback, but reference something that we talked about in briefing. You all did look at industry standards,
Yes.
how these assessments are done, and
Absolutely.
I think based on what the county administrator told me, you dug into that and tried to find the best model for our type of organization.
yes.
I just wanted to draw that out because I think that is an important part given how, just as you just articulated, how complicated this is.
It is.
And a lot of different methodologies.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that. And I really like the policy change. I think reflecting on the issues that may accompany someone when they come into our organization, if there was pay inequity at another place, is very good. So I'm really happy with that. I do, and Mr. Chair, I don't have any amendment to this motion or anything like that, but I think just for long term for me, I'm interested in how we can continually to assess this issue, but also advancements, the training issue that we had talked about in relation to the minimum wage last year. Just looking at how we can dig into this a little bit more, and there may be other related issues. I know it's not within our scope today. Someone coming back into the workforce after having children or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of other issues here. And I don't mean to pile on, but we are kind of leading the way, and this will get to my last comment, in looking at our HR policies on on a lot of these types of things. So I said this publicly recently, Commissioner Maddox and I, or Mr. Chair, were at a forum together and talked about the difficulty of, say, doing a minimum wage countywide, but we'll do it in-house and really demonstrate that that's possible in other large organizations. So I like where we're going with this, and I think we need to really focus on this in the future as well to be as strong as possible, and then to tell the story of how we're doing this, and that we can encourage others in the community. It'll strengthen all of us if we're a community that pays attention to pay equity and other issues. So with that, Mr. Chair, that's all my questions for now. Thank you, Candace. I think this is going to be an ongoing issue for us. Yeah.
Thank you. I have Commissioner Deloge, Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Lindley, Commissioner Proctor, and queue to speak. Commissioner Deloge, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Proctor, for bringing this up. I think this is a great, and in all seriousness, I mean, my jokes aside, I think this is a great thing to do, and I want to piggyback on Commissioner Dozier's comments earlier about without trying to reinvent the wheel and create a lot of extra work, it would be nice if there was a way on an annual basis that we could do kind of a little checkup and just come back and hit the highlights of this and say, are we in the lanes we thought we were? Has there been any kind of huge deviation? And if it's worth maybe amending the motion to something along those lines to just say, you know, and again, I realize the amount of work that goes into this on a first-time blush, but I'm wondering, and maybe you guys can talk through that, about how big of a lift would it be for, on an annual basis, that we at least look at the highlights of this, and if it needs to drill down and take it to the next level because we see some anomalies, then let's do it, but at least we keep it top of the mind, as Commissioner Dozier pointed out, because I think it's out of sight, out of mind. It's one of those things until somebody like Commissioner Proctor brings it up. I didn't, you know, I make jokes about where we ended up, but the reality is I couldn't have told you where we were. So, and I don't know, I guess that's a question to some
Sure.
degree. Could we do something?
Oh, absolutely.
While you answer that, Vince, can you also talk about when you looked at what other industries do or what, you know, similar industries do to what we did here? Is there a best practice to doing it every year, every 2, every 5 years to make sure that we're in line with everyone else?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Well, one thing I probably ought to sort of put it in the right perspective, it's important to note that we actually have a salary compensation specialist on staff in HR. So it's more of a year-round, more of an everyday kind of a thing. And so while we may not do a deep dive like this every day, and certainly this was very beneficial to us, compensation is something that we look at all the time, year-round. Inequities, competition, you know, where we are from a competitive standpoint, industry standpoint, all of those sorts of things. So it's a year-round process for us. To update something like this is not a big lift for us. And again, we'd be very happy to bring it. It's something that we will look at all the time. But again, it's something that we'd be more than happy to bring to the board. As you said, just sort of a check-in on how we're doing. We could do that on a routine basis. We can do that. Again, if we think we have issues that need to be addressed and that sort of thing. It's just, again, because it is something that we do every day, it's very easy for us to bring these issues back.
I would yield to staff on when, but I would think that if there were at least an annual point in time when, if pick a point in the budgeting process where you said, hey, this is our annual checkup, here's how we're doing. Right. I think some of the things we've done, you know, the minimum wage issue, the paid parental leave, some of the other things we've done from a benefit standpoint, and some of the things we're doing from a pay disparity standpoint, we start to become more of the employer of choice. And as Commissioner Dozier pointed out, I'm not going to ever agree to imposing this on the general population in our county, but you lead by example. And what happens is we become an employer where people want to come to work and where people are hesitant to leave because it's a good place to work and we take care of our employees. So, yeah, so if there's, I'll yield to y'all as far as timing on when that would come back, but thank you.
On point, Commissioner Lewin?
I would just like to, if we could add to it, some sort of just a checklist on what kind of training we have for our employees, what kind of programs, so they can, you know, improve their credentials or, you know, get themselves up beyond our minimum wage too. And I have no idea really what kind of programs we have, but I'm sure educational and credential ops are out there. If y'all don't mind adding that to the mix.
Are you okay with that amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, certainly. I if you don't mind, on point to this,
On point.
I had gotten back in the queue because I did leave out one piece, and Commissioner Lindley, I think you spoke to it. It was, I mentioned the training and different types of training professional degrees are one path for some folks, but there may be others. And thinking about our focus on non-degree positions, good careers, Leon Works, all of that type of stuff. And we don't have to dig into this too much, but there was a question in the back of my mind when I saw how many women-only or men-only groups might be there, and wondering if we are promoting alternative jobs to other folks, or, it's pretty easy to get into a pattern, both individually that this is an area I know, or, I've seen examples of in the past from moms and aunts and whoever, or dads. You all know where I'm going with this. So I think looking at that and really looking to different types of employees in those groups may help as well. And I think that gets to the training opportunities and exposing people to things they may not have thought about in the past. And this, again, is a little bit of a slide, but that gets to diversity in the workplace and how we all work together, and it can get into other issues that we talk about as well. So, yes, I appreciate the amendment, and I was on the same track. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Vice Chair. Commissioner Proctor? No, Mr. Vice Chair, I'm sorry. Commissioner Jackson first is Vice Chair, and then Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's good to note it's nothing short of remarkable that we're that closely aligned, male to female. Seldomly do my two daughters get involved in the business of the county commission. However, this was a topic of discussion when it was brought up by you, Commissioner Proctor. So I'll be glad to report back to them that the numbers are good. One of them is neither of them work for the county, but one of them is a teacher and one is a nurse. And looking at that median salary, we may be taking a look at some vacancies coming up. But to stay on point, I think it's great to see a disparity of $31 annually. That's about $3, less than $3 a month, the disparity between female to male. And that at the state level, it's 13%, and here in Leon County, it's less than 1%, with females earning less than males. And I think that is a testament. There's a table somewhere in the agenda that alludes to that. And then 19.5% less at the national level. So I think that Leon County has done a remarkable job of providing equity across all job classifications. With that, I will conclude.
Commissioner Proctor?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate the Board of County Commission taking this law down this particular lane to look at the evidence of pay fairness in an era of Me Too and Me Too movement, and the issue of exploitation on the basis of gender and Me Tooism. And one of the great objective measures of fairness is a comparison of pay. And one of the first things that the first executive order of President Obama was the Lilly Ledbetter Act, and it called for the equalization of pay between men and women in the American workplace. Now, the data that staff has given to us, the National Partnership for Women and Families, indicates that in Florida, the average full-time female worker earns $35,604, and the average male worker full-time year-round is $41,105, which their notation discerns that Florida's women earn 87 cents for every dollar paid to a man, which is a wage gap of $5,501, according to the April 2017 data that fact sheet the staff has placed to us as its first leading paragraph. That we have behaved above this norm and that the findings of staff reflect that this is not Leon County is compelling. I have to respect what my HR director has presented as a report and findings. Yet, I would say to this board and this body and this commission that self-reporting, and that's what this is unique and different thing than a third party's report in audit. Looking at the self-report from our HR director and our staff to us, and it's hard to, no one would want to disclose if we were weak in this area. But I think that we should also go a step further and have an outside third-party review at some point as we're gathering an impetus to be a conscience and focus in this area in the future. I would love to see a third-party independent report and audit with recommendations of how we can make this a permanent fixture of fairness and objectiveness. And that's not an indictment of, because our self-report indicates that we're all good. It's to make sure that when we are no longer here, that institutionalized fairness for gender pay is what we should struggle to establish. I believe that this issue is so important, it ought to be a determinant and a basis for evaluating the county attorney as well as the county's administrator. And you should know that while I'm not sure that there's a category, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, for evaluating the county attorney and the county administrator, I am going to use the measure of gender pay, equity, and fairness as one of the determinants of what their jobs should be evaluated upon. It's that meaningful. Vince, you were gone, but I said that I believe that pay equity should be a determinant for evaluating the county attorney as well as the county administrator. I don't think that those evaluations reflect that currently, but this
Well, after this study, Commissioner Proctor, I agree with you.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. But one of the things I'm hopeful that within the next 2 years, Vince, is that we can also not lean on a self-report, but that we would have the swagger and confidence to allow a third party, independent of our own staff, to review the same. And then I think that we all could rest with a lot more ease. Mr. Chairman, I think that I've not seen the data, but I think that what we are doing here creates new trends, and I'm hopeful that the Commission on Women and Girls, which also in their initial report gave to us some staggering data about pay and about gaps that existed on gender basis. We're in that same environment, and it really is amazing to me that we're an island immune and unique to the biases that have been prevalent in the Leon County community. That's a great thing. It portends to the excellence of both imagination, true grit, and fairness by county leadership if we're in an environment that has the numbers that were reported by the Commission on Women and Children, but we're performing so much better and higher than that. That's wonderful. So, Commissioner Dozier, I'm very glad to hear both you and Commissioner Lindley's voices, and not to single you out, but it has meaning in what you represent, who you are, and your voices are asserted in this unique desire to have a balanced, level playing field for all. So that said, Mr. Chairman, I'm supporting the motion that has been put on the table, and I'm very respectful of the effort put forward and very uniquely grateful that the County Commission, we took this stride to see how we're doing in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Just have one ask, one point of conversation for the Commission, just wondering if there's any will to do this. when we look at diversity and we look at equity and pay, we looked at gender today. Is there any willingness of this board to also take in consideration race as well? I think when we bring it back, maybe we should have gender and race involved, just to make sure that we are staying above the place where everyone else is when it comes to these subjects. I have no doubt that we already do well in those areas, but to have those numbers and to see them and to know is a lot better than assuming. So I'm wondering if this board wants to go down the road of race as well. Yes, ma'am.
I would welcome, I think, to Commissioner Deloge's point earlier, and what I brought up is if we have an ongoing assessment.
Right.
To make sure that in a wide variety of ways, whether it's advancement, women, minorities, diversity in all types, and opportunities in all types, I think that ongoing assessment could help us when it comes to women or minorities or any category. I think there is a balance. We have to acknowledge it between, professional skills, and I wouldn't want to see quotas for women for anything else. We need to have an organization that helps people advance. So this is a difficult subject oftentimes, but I think those two things really need to be balanced so that, as Commissioner Lindley brought up, we have the right training opportunities for others to be able to advance in some of these areas too. So I think a holistic look, and as Commissioner Deloge said, looking at it in some way on an annual basis would be great for us.
Great.
I'd happy to.
Great. So that,
Yeah.
I like that. Holistic, yes. All right, so the motion on the floor, sorry, Commissioner Proctor.
Mr. Chairman, just briefly, I support the statement of my fellow sister commissioner. And I think that if this board is willing to tie and create an index of performance of race and gender and those other categories Commissioner Dozier lifted up as a basis of evaluating our administrator, our county attorney, and our managers, that until it's a point of evaluation and whether or not it's an issue, whether food is going to come off their table, until there's this notion that it's serious to this commission as a policy matter, and every manager should know that the threat of food, not the threat, but the possibility that food may come off of their tables, at least as applies by Leon County government, based upon the adherence to our desire for this being taken very seriously. I would like to ask this commission, Mr. Chairman, if there's support for creating a new index of evaluation for our administrators and senior managers in this area.
Commissioner Dozier, the motion is yours, the floor is yours.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Proctor, you're talking about how we evaluate our senior staff? Yes? I think it's a worthy question. To me, it is slightly different than the type of annual assessment that we were discussing earlier. So I guess I would need to hear a little bit more, but perhaps we could posture this as a future agenda item, even in the fall, to just hear from county administrator and staff on how best to do an ongoing assessment and keep us on a competitive edge and make sure we're working well for all of our current and future employees. Would that be acceptable? Mr. County Administrator?
Mr. Administrator, also, when you speak to that, could you also speak to the fact, I think we just evaluate the county administrator and the county attorney. When it comes to senior staff, those things are done by each respective person to that respective group. Can we ask that they, or can we set policy that they have to also include something like this in their evaluation of senior staff, or can we only include that where we evaluate them based off? Because I think what Commissioner Proctor was asking for is that all senior staff be evaluated based on that matter, whereas I think we can only
Mr. Chair, not to digress into this too much, and I know you had asked the county administrator a question, but I wanted to stay focused on this issue, and it is more complicated, and we do hire only 2 people and evaluate them, so we have to defer a little bit. And I'll toss it back over to you because that was a question of the county administrator, but you and I are thinking along the same lines.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, both Herb and I do have in our annual evaluations an entire section that's devoted to employee development. I've heard from Commissioner Lindley before, how am I supposed to know how you do the certain things and that sort of thing? But it's pretty extensive. We could, without going off the top of my head, I think you'd mentioned, Commissioner Dozier, perhaps bringing something back to see if we've got all the bases covered there. I know Herb and I would both be happy to do that in the form of an agenda item where we could have more discussion over that and maybe roll into that a proposal for you all on how we would continue to bring this back in front of you and check in and make sure. And a lot of it is just kind of telling you and advising you on what we do throughout the year anyway in this regard, going to Commissioner Maddox's question about the evaluation of employees throughout the organization. Certainly there's an employee development section that we do there. And then our pay and compensation plan, which Candace talked about, is very elaborate compared to many organizations. So, I mean, because it is so exhaustive, what comes out of the end of that process does take into consideration all of these things. Again, being a governmental organization, we have many more federal regulations and state laws and different things that we do, and it's pretty formalized, as you would imagine. And the reason that you see such discrepancies that exist elsewhere, frankly, is that not all organizations adhere to those sorts of things. And many organizations may say, well, hey, look, revenues are down this year. We're going to evaluate Candace and Alan only this year, and next year we're going to do Scott and Vince. We don't have that level of informality. Every employee is evaluated every year. There's performance evaluations done on every employee. So there's a lot. So some of that is really just a matter of maybe bringing you back a little bit more detail of what we do and how we do it. We're happy to do that. I know maybe we can bring something back to you relative to mine and Herb's evaluation as well to make sure we've got all the boxes checked there.
All right, so I have no commissioners in queue to speak. Commissioner Proctor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Vince gave us a good direction, and Commissioner Dozier, I think, is comfortable that we bring an agenda item back to further discuss how we might, I use the word again, to institutionalize this notion of gender parity, race and pay compensation sameness, and how we task each manager in the hiring and setting of all the complicated things of salaries, that we make sure the institution has a calibrated methodology for evaluating performance in a sameness type of approach. I think this is a good idea, and we're treading in some very good and fertile waters. And I like the feeling on the dais right now as we're contemplating this, because this is what will give us the lasting, continuing capacity to keep the organization focused toward high ground. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Commissioner Dozier, if you can, I know we got staff recommendations, but there were some amendments to it. So could you restate the motion and the amendments that you have accepted to make sure that the board is fully aware of what we're voting on here?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would appreciate any help from you all as well, because we were talking about a lot of different things. So I think starting from the end, County Administrator's suggestion or confirmation that we can bring back an agenda item looking at this holistically and all the various parts. from evaluation to training to diversity in general and pay equity. Approving the item, and Commissioner Deloge, you had added in the annual evaluation that I think would come in that agenda item, and Commissioner Lindley, the training opportunities, a way to promote that to our staff, and alternative career paths and things like that is what I added on. Is that a summary of where we are?
In the agenda item coming back.
Yes.
That would cover those topics just to keep us moving forward.
Right.
Okay.
So
Mr. County
everyone understands
Administrator?
the motion on the floor?
Thank you.
Got it. Ms. Vosh got the motion? All right. Motion made by Commissioner Dozier, seconded by Commissioner Deloge as amended with staff recommendation included. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I'm going to ask Carrie Post and Ken Morris to join us for the next item, but as they're walking up here, can I just say one thing, Commissioners, about our previous item? I just want to take a minute to thank you, Commissioners. The conversation that you just had is not one that takes place on the dais of many boards of county commissioners or even state organizations about the training and the advancement opportunities and the competitiveness of pay and that sort of thing. And I really just wanted to stop there and thank you for that on behalf of all the county employees. And I think it's part of what makes this organization a special place. And I just wanted to thank you for that. Commissioners, on the next item that's before you, this is the item that seeks acceptance of the proposed FY19 through 21 strategic plan for the Leon County Division of Tourism. Obviously, you all know that the tourism strategic plan was ongoing. I want to thank you all for your participation, those of you who participated in that process. I know Carrie will echo that in just a moment. But before getting into the details of that, and I'll defer to Carrie to hit on the highlights of that in just a moment, the item before you also presents an option for the board's consideration which fulfills multiple goals operationally and realizes additional enhancements through the selling of the tourism building for the purpose of relocating tourism to the Amtrak building. Commissioners, beyond...
Excuse me, Vince,
Yes.
did you say that again?
Yes, sir, yes. As, you know, I think it's important that when we talk in the context of strategic planning, that we not only do strategic planning here, but we continuously explore opportunities to better allocate our resources in the strategic doing to achieve multiple objectives within existing resources. And so what we've done in this item is presented to you all an option to consider. It really is just that, this early stage.
So to move it to the Amtrak building.
What we're suggesting is that we achieve multiple operational as well as physical enhancement opportunities within existing resources by selling our downtown tourism building, relocating tourism staff to the Amtrak building, and Carrie can talk about this a little bit more. We think that by doing that, we put the tourism function right between Florida State University and FAMU, right in proximity of a new conference center, in proximity to so many new hotels and stakeholders that we're dealing with, and also as part of the revitalization efforts there. The strategic planning that we just wrapped up added credence to that idea from a strategic standpoint. It also gives us the opportunity, again, to achieve multiple objectives in that the proceeds of the sale could be used to address what I think we could characterize as a important historic building, but one that, frankly, perhaps could use some investment in the historic Amtrak building where we currently have our housing and human services operations. And we would also include in this option relocate housing and human services to Paul Russell Road, to the Cooperative Extension building. I paid a visit to that building myself recently with our Housing and Human Services folks and our facilities staff to determine that was a significant opportunity there to relocate that staff there, and the sort of the cross pollination there of the family and consumer services functions of cooperative extension, serving some of the similar clientele of our housing and human services, really presented some synergies and some operational capacity issues there, in addition to significantly better physical space on 3 bus lines with very ample parking. And of course, these were areas that were shortfalls relative to our existing footprint at Amtrak. So again, able to achieve really multiple operational as well as physical benefits, all within existing resources through the sale of the tourism building. And so again, this agenda item, this budget item goes into that in some detail. And again, I've talked to you commissioners individually about that a little bit. But obviously happy to talk about that more. And also I'm prepared here to hand it over to Carrie to give us a little bit of an overview of the tourism strategic plan, and to speak from her perspective a little bit about the move as well. Again, part of the onus that we put on ourselves during budget is to bring you things like this, where we see potential and opportunities like this. So again, this is something that if the board was to authorize this, we think that all of those moves could be facilitated in probably anywhere from 18 to 24 months. And with that, I'll pause to answer any questions you might have. And of course, Carrie's got a piece as well that she'd like to cover, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman.
Commissioner Putner.
Thank you, Vince. You gave us invitation to ask questions. What market study has shown recently the per square foot cost for leasing space 40 feet across the street from the state capitol complex, 40 yards from the city hall in Leon County's government? Is there not an extreme high value for a footprint of an office in a place situated like that? And what does the market say about that piece of property?
Sure, and I think what you referred to is lease versus sale of the building too, and certainly we looked into that as well. I'll probably defer to Mr. Rosenzweig here. We do have a little experience in this area as well with our lease arrangement that we have as the landlords of the Bank of America space downtown. So we're in that business, so to speak, and we are assisted by our brokers at Talcor, who give us very good professional advice relative to both sale versus lease of the tourism building. We asked them to weigh in on that as well, and I'll defer to Alan to give a little more detail.
We did speak with them and had an extensive conversation to determine in the long-term financial interest, would we be better off selling or leasing that space? Their analysis came back, because clearly they make money either way because they pay on the lease or on the sale, so there's no bias at all in that analysis, and they do our leasing for us at Huntington, and they do our leasing for us at the Bank of America building or the annex behind us, so they do lease property for us. Ultimately, they said, given the amount of lease space available downtown right now, their opinion clearly is you would probably be able to lease part of it, but in the long run, you may not lease the whole thing, and you may then be getting into the situation where you're going through turning over of leases. They felt on balance, the sale of the building was very attractive. They felt very easily there will be a buyer out there. Now, easily meaning there is a buyer. Is it tomorrow? Is it 6 months? But they didn't have any hesitation that that building would sell. But given the amount of office space downtown right now, and parking was, and as Vince said, parking is an issue with that building when you're in a lease environment. There's no parking with it. I don't want to undersell it right now. Those people are interested in purchasing the building, but the rental situation there would be a little more problematic. So their analysis was very clear, but we asked it specifically, Commissioner.
Okay. Ms. Post, I need to be persuaded, because I'm not. In your presentation, help me to understand the proposal. The moving part, I think that we take an inferior locale as a Tourist Development Center for moving from downtown to the railroad track. Railroad track has no particular history. In fact, the history it does have in recent years is that it's been a very dormant facility that seeks resurrection life. Someone uses it for a movie on the weekends. A bunch of people sleep around there in the evenings. No train comes through except to tie up traffic when you're trying hardest to get across the track. And I don't see advantages relative to the site that you're already where you are. And any time more than $86 billion is being split up, that you're right across the street from Florida's largest casino. And I don't know how you give up a front row casino seat on $86 billion to go to a railroad track. That don't sell. I need to be persuaded. Secondly, I believe that we disadvantage ourselves to empty a real estate portfolio of a downtown property 40 feet across the street from this casino and 40 yards from City Hall and 40 yards to county government. A front row seat, y'all. And I am disinclined, but I can support the move if it's more comfortable to be disturbed by the rattle-tat of trains going down and backing up and squealing. That makes y'all happy, great. I'm happy for you. But selling our building, we should retain ownership of a piece of property that over the years, to my gentle imagination, would only increase in value. And notwithstanding the Telcor company's outstanding resume, so far superior in their experience to what they do in real estate to my own. But I don't see our properties diminishing in the future, no time soon, until the state capital complex moves to Orlando. Then I think we should sell this building, that building, and several others that we may own. But as long as that building across the street is opening up in March and staying over there spreading and distributing money, we have a jewel, a prized piece of property. I support the move, go ahead to the railroad track. But I do not support our selling that piece of property just because casually Telcor has trotted out some hotsy-totsy talk. That doesn't convince me, but I'm open and persuade me. I'm open, but I'm telling you my objections. This ain't the Shark's Tank or nothing like that, but this is just Proctor's thoughts. So, Commissioners, I wanted to weigh in and respond to what Vince asked us to do before Ms. Post spoke.
Mr. Chair, I am the TDC's board representative, and I went to the strategic planning that Kerry put together, and I can't remember the guy's name, but it was very well done. And he made a statement I repeated this morning to somebody that, tourism is the first stage for economic development. And, if there's one thing we kind of lean in on, it's economic development. And Kerry did a nice job of putting it all together. And if you remember when the chamber moved about 5 or 6 years ago from over by Park to where they are today on the other end of the town, there was some loose discussion at the time because I think most of us would realize that the building that Kerry's in, that's not the highest and best use for that building. It's, to Commissioner Proctor's point, is a very valuable piece of real estate. And then you get into a debate of, are we a real estate holding company? And if we were doing nothing but trying to figure out how to invest money, maybe our best thing would be to hold that. But the reality is that's really not our job. But so I'd leave that up to people smarter than me. But I think to the train station, the Amtrak piece, if you look back 10 years ago and said, who wants to move down there by Railroad Square? But I don't know how many of y'all have been down there in the last year. FAMU Way is getting finished behind it on one side. There's a brand new hotel on the other side. The School of Hospitality and the Business School and the Civic Center and all the Madison Mile stuff is coming in. It's really turned into kind of the hotbed of the community. And as everything shifts to the south side like that, I think she's going to be in the thick of it. And I think correspondingly, there's some talk about could we do some kiosks, whether that's at I don't know, the airport or downtown, or you find a couple of spots where you've got a couple of people, so there's a visible, because when you ask people, where is the TDC, they're mostly, it's very, because of parking and because of signage, it's a difficult one to figure out. I think we can put some signage there where people identify it, and then put a couple of outposts and accomplish everything. And then I'd leave the sell lease thing to people smarter than me, but I think it's brilliant, and I think it's exciting for TDC too, because I think that building, as good as it is and as convenient as it is for some of us, it's really can be done. I mean, a law firm or a lobbyist firm would really be able to take better advantage of that, I think. And Kerry would be in the thick of things down there by Gain Street, in my opinion. So I think it's a good move, and I'm going to support it. In fact, I'd go ahead and make the motion to accept staff's recommendation on 1, 2, and 3.
Second motion.
Staff recommendation been moved by Commissioner Deloge, seconded by Commissioner Lindley. Commissioner Lindley, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just really do like the plan a lot, and I also like the aspect of upgrading a little bit the railroad station, because it's a really interesting piece of history. So in terms of our interest in historic preservation, making that more usable. Also, I just think it's important to keep in mind your office is really not a storefront operation with a lot of walk-in traffic. You're doing your work throughout the state and throughout the nation to some extent. So I agree that area is really vital, and I also like shifting some of our offices out to the
Fairground?
No, not the fairgrounds. The Paul Russell Road. I couldn't remember the name of the road.
Yeah.
Right. For one thing, the staff can all build a community garden out there and have lunch and that sort of thing. But I think it's a great project, and I particularly like the historic preservation piece of making that train station area cooler and a part of the growing enhancements of the whole district around there. So I'm all for it.
All right. I have no more Commissioner Proctor.
Well, it's interesting. I listened to Commissioner Deloge, and our staff told us on page 7 that the Leon County's purchased a tourism building in January of 1999 for $1.5 million. At the time of the purchase, the primary driver of the building selection as a location was its proximity to the Capitol and courthouse in order to establish a visitor/welcome center. And it seems that the element and essence of Tallahassee being the state's capital was, at least I appreciate the intellectual honesty of the staff to say that the fact that we're the capital, we leaned into that energy to establish that locale there. And it was its very geography that was the compelling catalyst for which we purchased it. I'm trying to figure out what has changed in terms of the catalytic factor that brought it to our attention. It made it the cat's meow, the location. What has changed in 10 years? It's still that very line. At the time of the purchase, the primary driver of the building selection as a location was its proximity to the Capitol and courthouse in order to establish a visitor welcome center. But if I heard Commissioner Deloge correctly, he's focused to a local energy shift that's occurring down in the area of railroad track. Absolutely. And in terms of the philosophy that would move the tourists, we're saying that we now would change it out to trend after local occurrences, and that we're shifting philosophy in its locale being as a state capital receptive center for people coming to the state capital. I just need to make sure that we're clear of that fundamental shift, that we now want to be just, Tallahassee, and we're not trying to be the state center for which originally we purchased this property and located it there. Is that where we are? That's what we're saying. Now, again, options 1 and 2, I ain't got no problem with y'all. I'm there. But option 3, even if we supported option, Yeah, if we went there on option 1 and 2, I can support that. I mean, absolutely. But we often have a way of when Carrie Post comes to the table, she never gets to speak, Mr. Chairman. And we spend her money, we divide up her bed taxes, and lottie-dottie, anybody can apply to get some. And she's really voiceless over operation. And she's moving now, and I still hadn't heard a word, but she smiles through it all. I wanted to perhaps propose a substitute motion, and since we never let her speak, Karen, just forgive me, I would substitute motion for options 1 and 2, and that we would hold off for another discussion on option 3. The fact that they like to move and become more of a local as opposed to function at the state and government, county government. I can support that if that's our shift. But the fact that we're going to sell one of the most important pieces of properties anywhere in Florida, just because they're going down the railroad track, I disagree with. So I offer options 1 and 2 as a substitute motion and ask for a second.
Motion on the floor is for options 1 and 2 with an agenda item in reference to option number 3 to come back to make later decision on. Is that correct, Commissioner Proctor? Is there a second to that motion? On point.
And I failed to include option 4, which is accept the strategic plan, which I don't want to discount Carrie's work here. But maybe there's a way to kind of get Commissioner Proctor where he is. I think everybody, if I understand correctly, is in agreement with the move. I think that's kind of a non-starter. I think most people say that. We get that. I mean, they use the first floor. They don't use the second, third floor. It's really not the best use of that building. The question, if I understand Commissioner Proctor, is do we sell it, do we hold it, do we lease it? And that maybe we bring that back for a little further discussion. So maybe the motion would be, and I'd be happy to amend my initial motion, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4 with a little bit of a nuance on the sale, which is come back with a little bit further discussion, and I'd flesh that out a little bit to say, how do you keep a downtown presence? In other words, is there a way, I'm just thinking out loud, where we use for voting, for instance, downstairs, which is kind of a space in the county courthouse that doesn't seem to get a lot of use. Maybe there's a place somewhere downtown where we can continue to be present and accomplish what that first floor does without, and then we can have further discussion about sale versus lease based on Commissioner Proctor's comment.
And it may be a reception center of a different type where we bring the National Association of Counties or other groups and it becomes a reception hall. Unique, that you don't have to go to the state capitol per se, but walk across the street to a reception center across the street. It has a lot of potential.
So I think,
Is that your amendment?
yeah, that's the way, if that's acceptable.
Commissioner Proctor, do you rescind your
Gary's
motion?
trying to weigh in over that.
I'm gonna give her opportunity.
Yeah, but that's
Commissioner Proctor.
okay. Precisely that we're not pulling the trigger to sell. That word sell is problematic.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to add some additional clarification. Couldn't agree with you more about the importance of having a presence downtown. And that is, but again, that's more from the visitor information aspect. We as staff can be anywhere, and I agree down at Railroad Square and what's happening there, and there's staff. But the visitor information function is critical. It's referenced in the new strategic plan on really taking a look at some enhancements to how we serve the visitors. So right now we are in discussion with the Historic Capitol as a potential location there. And again, the Visitor Information Center, having on-site, in the community information is essential. And being downtown, especially during legislative session and committee meetings, is key. So we have, in addition to the Historic Capitol, a couple other options we're exploring downtown, because the TDC, tourism staff, we all agree that we need a downtown presence to serve visitors, absolutely. As well as in the strategic plan, it's referenced to, there's interest to locate one out along I-10. So having visitor information centers in the market is key, and particularly downtown, but also in the strategic plan, it was contemplated for looking at the building for the highest and best use. And again, from a staff perspective and the Tourist Development Council, they view the move very favorably. But again, underscoring your concern about having visitor information presence downtown, it's in the plan.
Good. Thank you. I have Commissioner Dozier, Commissioner Proctor in queue to speak. just before Commissioner Dozier, real quick, my comments. Commissioner Pratt, I think he hit the nail on the head. It gives me a little bit of discomfort to just sell right now. I would be more comfortable with the agenda item coming back, just looking at evaluating selling versus leasing and looking at how we come back, how we continue to have that downtown presence. I thought it was pretty creative. I've never heard it quite stated this way, but the Capitol being Florida's largest casino, I don't know how you come up with this stuff, Commissioner Pratt. It's good. It's good stuff you come up with, but I think there is some merit being downtown. I mean, if you look at that area in particular and the people who occupy the spaces around where we sit right now, it's obviously a very valuable piece of land. And so to have a deeper dive into what the market looks like when you sell or when you lease, and then how we continue to keep that presence is something that I think we should bring back an agenda item and actually do. On your second point, Commissioner Proctor, it's exciting, really, when you think about what you were saying, Commissioner Proctor, and us moving away from thinking that we have to be so close to state government and saying now we need to be closer to our local amenities. It brings to the forefront how we're developing as a community, not just to be state government, but to have our own amenities that people can come in and visit, whether it be the Arena District or College Town or FAMU Way or even Adams Street. We are developing much past being just the state capital of the state of Florida. And so I'm excited about the move to Railroad Station and even excited about the improvements that will be made to the building, because I think that building is historic, but it's also, it becomes a landmark, even more of a landmark for the city of Tallahassee and Leon County. So I'm excited about the move, excited about the agenda item coming back, and completely agree with you on your points, Commissioner Proctor. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this has been a good discussion about the building. Your discretion, of course, but we're still going to hear a bit of a presentation on the strategic plan itself. Is that right? Or if you'd like, yeah. I thought
if you'd like to hear a little bit about it, I don't think it was on. Okay. It was on the budget.
I can go with the discretion of the board. I did have a couple questions on the strategic plan itself, and so didn't want to jump ahead of any comments you might make, Carrie.
So before you ask those questions, is there any more questions on this related? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's exactly what I was about to say. I would chime in to have one comment about the building if you wanted to dispense with that. I just want to clarify
let's get
where
through
we
that,
were.
and then we'll get to strategic plan.
Okay. So, yes, I do think it's a good discussion. My gut reaction to this was harkening back to the 18-hour downtown and things we've all seen and read about downtowns that have predominantly first floor office space. You mentioned Commissioner Deloge, a lobbying firm or a lawyer would love to move in there. Of course they would. This is the market for our downtown right now. Mm-hmm. And it is hard for retail, for restaurants, for coffee shops, for others to find square footage downtown that is at a rate they can afford. We've seen this historically. I'm not arguing for that necessarily. We had a discussion about this in briefing, and I am persuaded, I think the agenda item is great, but just putting this out here now, that converting this building back to the tax rolls is probably a good thing. I'm not sure what other use we could, highest and best use for a county facility at that location. It also strikes me after reading this item, and this is not for lack of effort with the shop out front, but I can walk to City Hall and miss the visitor center. And I know it's there, and I'm looking for it. I really am excited by the potential move here. Just being down at an event in the Gaines Street area yesterday, I walked back by the new Publix that's being constructed and the hotel there, and looked at Domi and looked at the Amtrak, and it really is exciting thinking about parents or other visitors coming there, and then how much it will interact with the business community in general and just be more accessible. So I am excited about this. Again, I think the agenda item is great, but if anything, I would love to see a mixed use in that building, but I know market rates and our need to be responsible to our budget and to getting a fair price for that so that we can reinvest it needs to be all in this conversation as well. So I just wanted to make that comment, Mr. Chair, but I'll save any other questions for strategic plan for a few minutes.
Mr. Chair. Yes, sir. I just want to 3. I'm sorry, I was looking in the wrong section there. So it's agenda items 1, it's a staff's recommendation 1, 2, and 3 with the amendments we talked about on number 3.
Right.
There's
So
no,
the motion on the floor is for items 1, 2, and 3 to be amended to include agenda item coming back looking at the authorization to sell. That is a motion on the floor. It's made by Commissioner Deloge, seconded by Commissioner Lindley. I have. You didn't? Okay. Is there? Not as amended. No. Okay. So I need a second as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Proctor as amended. I have Commissioner Daly and Commissioner Proctor in queue to speak. Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. You know, the more I listen to the debate, the more I'm convinced that maybe we should pump the brakes on selling the property, option number 3, because there are some creative ideas coming out. I mean, you can always sell, right? I think also, I agree that we need to have a downtown presence. I also agree that the building's underutilized. I think there's a great opportunity, and I think it would rent in a heartbeat the upper stories for lobbying and law firms. But I also think that maybe we should take a break and think creatively about how to utilize the space down below. For instance, the first thing that just came to my mind, I think we have a unique opportunity to create the equivalent of the Florida House in Washington, D.C., in Tallahassee for state government, for visitors, a place to come to visit. This is your capital community, reception space, but also be able to provide the visitor information. My point is this. I don't think we're going to figure out all the answers right now. I'm a little confused on the motion for option number 3, which is we're going to go ahead and authorize the sale.
No.
But yet bring it back for discussion?
No, there's not. It's not authorization. It's an agenda item to look at it.
Option number 3 says authorize the county administrator to sell, but to bring back an agenda item. I'm confused on that. I would be more comfortable with just option number 1, option number 2, and then let's bring back an agenda item to discuss option number 3. Because option number 3 actually says to authorize the sale. So, or at least let's clarify for the record option number 3.
Clarify.
so my intent was, and we can go however y'all want to do it, I think most people agree that the move makes sense, that the daisy chain of moving to Gain Street, moving to the, out to Paul Russell for the other housing group. So I don't want to disrupt that. That's not in 1 or 2. So my goal was let's move forward with that. The agenda item I'm looking for is, don't sell the building, come back and let's do a little bit more deeper dive on what you're asking about, is what is the best thing for us to do long term.
So options 1 and 2.
1, yes.
Right. Option 1, option 2, with the agenda item coming back with the deep dive.
The move goes forward, so
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can I just clarify one thing? We wouldn't intend to do any moves or anything until the item comes back because they are connected. We wouldn't be able to do the move without the proceeds of the sale of the building.
That's gonna play into
But again, we're very happy to bring back a full analysis for the board. Again, this is just one of those ideas to bring to you to get a temperature check from you. It lends itself perfectly for an agenda item to come back to you, laying out all the options for you.
Commissioner Proctor and Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I watched the funeral of former First Lady Barbara Bush. And I recall when presidential candidate John McCain was asked the question in a debate exactly how many homes did he own? And presidential candidate McCain said that he didn't know, he wasn't sure. And I heard Jeb Bush indicate that his family had lived in 17 locations as a family. And I recall some years ago, there was a question, where did Commissioner Bill Proctor live? And some families have more than one spread. The Bushes, the McCains have multiple. When presidential candidate John Kerry was running, Teresa is not going to want to live in the White House. That's a step way down. And they have properties everywhere over the world. I'm just wondering, why does the Leon County Tourist Development Center have to be restricted in one office? And why can't they have a downtown center that fulfills our original thought? And we also expand to capture the energies that's moving down to the railroad track. In fact, if we were outside of the box, in which we dare not do, but just perchance, if we were outside of the box, why wouldn't the Leon County Tourism have we got a bathroom out there on I-10 before you get to the Highway 90, and if we got a bathroom out there and people stopping for it, we could have a tourism site right there, Leon County Tourism. Over on Highway 90 in I-10, we should have a tourism site somewhere out there, co-joined with a bathroom. What about on Thomasville Road? People come to Tallahassee we have a tourism site. What I'm trying to say is that why do we have to think of only one little spot for the tourism site when there are different audiences coming to Tallahassee for different things? Some coming to football games, some coming to graduation, some coming for less noble purposes, but they're coming to Tallahassee and they're drawn by different things. So, even when you go to ABC's, there's different varieties of scotch. Some like vodka, some like gin, So the attraction and that which is palatable to some as tourists may not be fit the taste bud of others. So why can't we own the building already. It's ours. We own the tracks down there, the building by the tracks. It's ours. I don't see anything about any major costs, anything like that. We just moving some boxes down there, paying some. So my idea, Commissioners, that if we, at least like the crab standing up to the edge of the bucket and peep outside the bucket to peep on the other side of it, we could just peep out there. There's nothing that limits us. And my suggestion to us is that we allow for maybe staff to come back and share a multiplicity of thoughts in having not crammed up on the train, but that we look at those two sites which are already ours, and even look at the possibility of meeting more people before they get to town, and or either on the Mahan Drive or when people come. So let's not just be static and either here or there. We can have more than one home. We can have more than one office. And Mr. Chairman, if you don't believe it, Leon County's government, where we are, is in Center City. We have an office over there by the hospital for Mr. Parks' office. We have property down at the fairground where the agriculture. We got some property out there on Gum Road where we perform another function for garbage transfer. We got some property out there on 27 where it used to be the where you take your trash and bury it, but now it's a park. And we have numerous properties and sites. I just don't see why we're in this box. Let's unleash the Tallahassee tourist development and let them be in multiple sites, just as this government maintains multiple sites. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Dozier and then Commissioner Lindley for final thoughts. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And
Mr. Chairman, you going to give us a break this morning? Or what?
After this item, maybe.
All right, we need a little break.
Come on, sit down.
All right.
I would appreciate moving on to the strategic plan as well. But, Mr. County Administrator, one question, and I appreciate you highlighting the fact that the sale of the building, the move to Amtrak is contingent on the sale and improvements. While I am open to the agenda item, if others would like to look at various aspects of this that we're not going to flesh out today, I do not want to hold this up too much. I am in favor of this move, and I also know, having spent some time in various parts of the Amtrak building, I'm sure the HHS staff isn't thrilled that improvements will happen once they leave, but it's needed. So, and particularly if it's a visitor center, I mean, we do need that. The purposes are very different. So I don't want to hold that up too much. When do you, we only have one more meeting, so I assume if you're going to do this agenda item, you're looking at September or something, or what do you think?
Probably, Commissioner, but we could get this back to you soon. We've done really all the analysis that it's probably needed. Many of the things that Commissioner Proctor has brought up and others have brought up are included in the strategic plan, including the presence on I-10 and other factors that we already have contemplated the downtown presence and that sort of thing. So really, most of the work is done. It's just a matter of fleshing it out a little bit more, talking to you a little bit more lease versus sale and some of the moving parts. But from an analysis standpoint, we should be ready to either get this to you in July or September.
Okay. I can support the motion if we can move quickly on this. I think with the wide variety of examples and analogies that Commissioner Proctor just used, of course there can be different locations, but Carrie, you hit on this, and I was going to save this until we talked about the strategic plan. Anytime we go to other communities, the visitor information is typically at one center, but also at places that you would go and visit. The Old Capitol is perfect. I'm not sure anyone from the state is coming over to our office as much as they're going to the Old Capitol or something else like that. The partnership aspect of this is critical, as is our fiduciary responsibility to the county budget. We are scrambling for every $100,000, $1 million right now. We have budget issues that may be coming depending on the election. I agree, we could all get really creative, and that's why the first floor issue came to my mind, and yet considering this, the bigger picture, I don't believe I'm going to change my mind. I mean, anything's possible, but this is a potential source of income to improve Amtrak that is also needed. So I just wanted to lean in on that a little bit. But, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move on and look forward to that agenda item as soon as possible so we can keep things moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. I will be voting against the substitute motion. I would just like to see us move on. I think we need to get this building back on the property tax rolls. We know we're going to take a big hit with the homestead exemption. The agenda item and the strategic plan have given us lots of information on this. Yes, there are always creative ideas coming down the pike, but I don't think it's the county government's responsibility to be in the real estate business as landlords any more than absolutely necessary. And I just can't. I don't even want to see the agenda item come back. I'm completely in favor of the original 1, 2, and 3.
Commissioner Lindley, would you like to make substitute motion? No, that's the.
Substitute motion is for items options 1, 2, and 3, which is move forward with the sale.
Substitute motion on the floor. Yeah. Substitute motion
Without
on the floor.
any other discussion, we've got volumes of information on this in our agenda items, in our strategic plan. It's available to us. It has been.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman, before we take this vote.
Yes, sir.
Could I ask the county attorney maybe a question? Is this property, in terms of us putting it back on the tax roll, exactly when will this tax come back to the county's coffers, per se? Don't the taxes in this area go to the CRA, or where they capture?
Some will, yes.
So it
4 mills or whatever that number is now.
So I was under the impression that this property, if it was in private ownership, it would be monies that would be captured by the CRA in the downtown district, and it's not coming to the county's coffers anywhere.
It's basically half.
Half, yeah.
Oh, half. Okay. So it's not this tremendous, by putting it back on the county tax roll, it's not the tremendous windfall that we're.
It's 2024 when the entire amount will be on the tax roll.
Okay, yeah, I'm saying this is not windfall. So just to, kind of make sure we put that in perspective, that is a huge gain in terms of tax coming to the coffers. It ain't all of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I'm likely to support the substitute motion. I didn't quite understand the fact that we can't do the move without the sale. So, and I'm definitely in support of the sale and the shift in philosophy of the organization. And
Vince did not say that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, he did.
Is that what you said, Vince?
Yes, sir. It's the sale would effectuate the improvements on the other two facilities, the railroad and the cooperative extension building.
Well, if it's not broke, you don't have to fix it, and we ought to look at a move that would not need to effectuate a sale, Mr. Chairman. I mean, if we could move and not have the sale, we've not studied that.
Substitute motion on the floor is made by Commissioner Lindley, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. for options 1, 2, and 3. All those in favor of the substitute motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1. We move on now. It's the will of the commission. I'm sorry, it's a strategic plan. Well, it wasn't a part. What do you want to talk about strategic plan?
Mr. Chairman, your call. I can clip through it really quick, or I'd be happy to meet individually if there are questions.
Is there any action in reference to the strategic plan?
Just to accept it.
Just to accept it. All right.
Question 1. Yes. Did you?
Yes, that's what I thought. You want to?
Option 3.
I can clip through real quick, or like I said, I'm happy to meet, one-on-one. It's your call.
No. I do want you to give us the high level. Commissioner Dozier, you can ask your questions. Is there any more questions that the commission asks? They can ask them. But give us the high points, and Commissioner Dozier, then I'll recognize you to ask your question.
Okay, I'll clip through real quick. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The strategic plan that you have before you in the item was unanimously approved by the TDC on May 10th. We did retain a professional consultant, Mr. Bill Geist. He was the principal of DMO Pros. He's a nationally recognized firm that works with destination marketing organizations such as ourselves in developing destination strategic plans. Throughout March and April of this year, we worked to gather broad community input. I'm really proud to say we had almost 300 points of view shared, which I think is exceptional. There were 190 online responses to the survey and more than 100 in-person interviews. So what you see in the strategic plan does represent very broad community input. The TDC, they also tweaked the vision and mission. The vision, just to be real quick, again, and it just was to make it a little more shorter and a little more relevant from what it was previously. The vision is the Tallahassee region will be recognized and appreciated as one of the most diverse and vibrant destinations in the Southeast. The mission of the Division of Tourism and the Tourist Development Council is to enhance the region's economic growth and quality of life by collaboratively inspiring the vitality of Tallahassee's visitor economy. Again, through all of the community input, there were about a dozen projects that were identified as potential opportunities. The TDC went through a prioritization exercise to focus on the projects that would be the most important and impactful. And the results of those you will see in the following 4 main goals that were identified in the strategic plan. 1 is advocate for destination enhancing development. 2, enhance awareness, interest, and support of the visitor economy in Leon County, enhance the visitor experience, and increase the marketing budgetary resources. So goal 1, I'm going to touch on really quick, and we've had a little bit of conversation today, is 1 is serve as the voice of the visitor and destination development discussions. And that includes, as we're talking about FSU's Arena District and the Convention Center, the Airport Master Plan, Appalachia Regional Park, the new FAMU football stadium and athletic facilities. Again, we want to be the voice of the visitor in those discussions. A very, very strong element of goal 1 is collaborating with OEV, Chambers of Commerce, Blueprint to enhance the destination. And of course, since festivals and events are great motivators for travel, to advocate for new and expanded festivals and possibly positioning ourselves as the festival capital of the Southeast. So goal number 2, which is enhance the awareness, interest, and support of the visitor economy. This is really distilled down to increasing local marketing to residents and the tourism industry, more outreach and more communication. For residents, work with area media outlets to promote the new tourism products and enhancements, hidden gems, having more in tourism visibility in PR, social media, in print, videos. Also, the tourism industry, we heard loud and clear from our industry partner that they wanted more interaction with staff, and as well as the TDC. So increase our communication collaboration, both with tourism industry partners, and again, in different segments. Like we found a lot of the attractions, there's value in getting them together, the sports communities, again. So having having us provide more platforms for engagement, hosting quarterly meetings. And under this, too, is a new grant system. You heard us talk about a number of years ago, and in this budget this year, to provide a platform to fully automate all of our grants, offer it to COCA as well. So again, we can have that community platform again to better serve the industry and our industry partners. Goal number 3 is enhance the visitor experience. This goal pertains to basically the future of visitor information centers and how visitors interact in the destination. As I shared earlier, visitor information, centers, while visitors are in market, truly is essential, but they obviously need to be where there's foot traffic and where the visitors are. So downtown, and you heard us mention that, also under this goal is where it was contemplated to evaluate the highest and best use of the building, enhance the region's infrastructure and signage. Signage became a very strong component. While there's a lot of signage downtown, there's not a lot of wayfinding signage around. So as part of the strategic plan and in the budget for this year is to implement a signage program that can easily move people, say from the airport to Innovation Park, Mag Lab, Appalachia Regional Park, the greenways, to do more infrastructure of signage in addition to the downtown. We'll be working with the planning department on that. So again, visually it's aligned with the brand, but there is clearly a need for more wayfinding signage to help the visitor move more around the destination. Goal number 4 talks about increasing the marketing budgetary resources. The primary goal here is support the Leon County legislative priority as well as FSU's in working to expand 125.0104 in state statute to allow Leon County to be designated a high tourism impact destination. That funding could go towards a convention center specifically. So again, we would be advocating for the support of that. Potential sponsorship opportunities in the sports market. We are currently, right now, negotiating with Publix to come on board to create a new race here in the destination with Publix on board, actually Greenwise as a sponsor. And also another opportunity, again, in the sports market for working with corporate sponsors is perhaps exploring an opportunity with Capital Health Plan and tie it into Trailahassie.com to see if we can get some partnerships going there. And of course, always to make sure that we are evaluating the vendors and grants and all of our programs to ensure the highest ROI for TDT revenue. So that pretty much concludes, just again, I hit very, very top level. On the strategic plan, pages 14 and 15 really summarize all the comments that we heard in those over 300 touch points. And there were some very common themes. So again, we know it's a big item, but really do appreciate the TDC and all the industry members and you all for your guidance and insight in helping us develop the plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. This is Commissioner's relation to my intentions. I want to go ahead and finish this item, take up 7, and then we'll take a break, come back and get 5, 6, and 8. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The building is critical. Glad we had a discussion about that. But this is really exciting. The new strategic plan, I did have an opportunity to meet with the consultant, appreciated that. So thank you, Carrie, for your hard work. Commissioner Deloge, I know thank you for your service, long time on the TDC board. And I, probably not surprisingly, will have a comment about COCA. So Commissioner Maddox, I know you're a rep on the COCA board, I believe, still.
Yes, ma'am.
So would love to hear your thoughts on this regarding COCA, if you have any. I really like the holistic nature of what I saw in the plan. I think we had a lot of good ideas in the past. I was going to tie this in with the building that, it made sense to locate the building right across from the Capitol at some point in the past, but we know so much more now, and we have so much more to offer that we're looking at it a little differently. So that's just an example. So really appreciated that. Can't go without saying Choose Tallahassee got a New York Times Magazine. Congrats on that, and the partnership is fantastic. So the first thing, Carrie, I'm really glad you mentioned the mission and the vision because I think regionalism this is something that is very present in my mind often, and I'm glad that's in the mission and the vision statement. Is there a way that you could see, and I noted this in your comment about the tourism summit, working with our regional partners and having been the board's rep on Appalachia Regional Planning Council for the last year and a half, the difference in that organization now versus years past is dramatic. And there is a lot of energy among those 9 counties, which stretches to Gulf, to have more collaboration as we see in other regions, whether it's West Florida or Central and South Florida. So I think there's some eagerness there to partner. Opportunities like City of the Sea Trail and other things would be really great. I know your focus on the day trippers and guests that come in and what locals do with that, or with those folks when they're here. So do you think there's a space where we could be more deliberate in reaching out? Obviously, we have more resources than a lot of those communities, but to think about this regionally and help some marketing, even if it takes a little while, kind of starting to look at that so we're ready to market opportunities like the trail.
Actually, I'm planning a meeting in July with all of our regional partners, going down to Franklin, Wakulla, Jefferson, Gadsden, all around, because, and even to Thomasville, frankly, and not just for collaborative marketing, but also for the needs of, and which I hope that's part of it, because again, we are kind of the big dog in the region, but also, frankly, for peak periods and emergency response, because what we've learned these last 2 years, when we're full and we have needs, we're reaching out to put, bucket trucks over and, whether it's in Gadsden or Jefferson. So there's a need to bring us together, not just for emergency response, but also like we've had in the last 2 years, where we'll have a lot of big events scheduled on the same weekend and we're full. And so we have FSUs calling and saying, we need, X number of rooms for this. We're able to work with our partners in those counties. So I definitely did see the need to bring them all together to more formalize it and talk about the year ahead and see what opportunities we have. Because to visitors, frankly, and I know this might sound like blasphemy, but county lines don't mean anything to visitors. They're all here for an experience. And because we're always promoting, Wakulla Springs and that, so that it makes a lot of sense to bring the region together. So that's what, and actually it's been one of my priorities of what I wanted to do. And so I said in July it's going to happen. So your timing's great. Would you like to come to the meeting?
I would be excited to do it. I would love for Appalachia Regional to be included, because I think the staff there could be very helpful in communicating. And that's this wonderful carry. And I'm glad you mentioned Thomasville. I heard a number maybe a year and a half ago of the amount of revenue Thomas County is taking in on dove hunting and attracting visitors for hunting. And we've got some unique assets in our region that the rest of Florida does not have. And it is in the ecotourism and the hunting and other areas. So we need to lift that up. So this is fantastic. I love it. And I know that any assistance anybody can give would be great. The second quick thing that I wanted to mention is, and I only have 3 things, Mr. Chair, is I would have an example of a map I picked up in Knoxville, but the county administrator stole it from me, and I'm not sure where it is right now because he liked it so much. So he may have passed it on to others, but in going into Ken, you've got it? Okay. So going into a coffee shop there was this great tiny little pocket-sized hold-up map of walking trails and bike trails around the community. And it was the first thing we saw, and it was at a business. So partnering with the businesses, you're talking about coordinating, but looking at apps. I don't think we've finished the Tallahassee app, and I mean, we've talked about that in the past, but apps and things like that and other types of maps, there's some really creative ways of doing that. There were sponsorships on this map, so it wasn't completely funded by, it was county or city. But I would really love to see some dialogue on our part or some options coming back, so I kind of toss that over to TDC board as well. And that relates to the last point that I know I may sound like a broken record, my colleagues, others, in the past on this, but I have held back on this for a little while, but I do remain frustrated by Some of the lack of coordination. In this strategic plan, you've got all kinds of partnerships everywhere. Unless I missed it, I didn't see COCA referenced. You do have in one of the goals coordinating on the calendar, and I went to look up COCA and visit Tallahassee's calendar. For whatever, and we don't need to dig into it now, we got to break this code. We got to figure out what it is. TDC, or tourist taxes, funds COCA, and whether it's a collaboration, whether it's board connection, I don't know what this is. I've not been on the board for several years, but the fact that it's cumbersome to get to some of the, there's some overlap. Events do struggle scheduling because they do not know when other people are scheduling. Boy, if we could get ahead of that, well, a Word of South Festival would love, that kind of knowledge as well. So it's good for hotels, but it's good for our events and our partners as well. So I don't know when we need to do this, but like I said, I know that we've dug into this in the past, but we've sat back and not sat back, but we've let things play out for several years with this new strategic plan and this focus. I think we've just got to have better coordination, and we need to hear from COCA as well about how we're going to work on that. So I don't want to put you on the spot, Carrie, necessarily, unless you have any comments to share. That was for us in our ongoing conversation about our funded programs throughout. So, again, please, if you've got comments, but that's, yeah.
In my brevity going over the strategic plan, I was remiss in not including as part of that, and specifically on the calendar of events, is to work with COCA, because it's between those two calendars, but to have one together that it speaks for the destination. So that is absolutely in the strategic plan, is that one website. And again, it's going to be a collaboration of both of us working together, and that dialogue has already started.
That's fantastic. We obviously have more involvement in your strategic plan than we do COCA's, and Mr. Chair, that's why I kind of look to you as our representative on that board, and it is a different structure, but my feeling is we need to light a fire under the collaboration, and I appreciate you already looking towards that, so thank you very much. Really appreciate it, Carrie. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners, I tell you what, I was going to take up item number 7, but I'll just tell you my ultimate intention is to get us out of here by at least 12 to 12:15 at the latest. So we can take up item number 7, we can take up all 3. Let's go, item number 6.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be quick on item 6. I won't even ask Tony Park to come to the table.
Actually, item 5. Item 5.
You want to do 5? I'm sorry, that's true. That would be the next one. This is the Junior Apprenticeship Program. Commissioners, this is just an update, comes to you during this time of the year. We're doing great. We've got 30 students.
Move accept as a report, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Option number 1 has been moved by Commissioner Proctor, seconded by Commissioner Deloge. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Item number 6.
Item number 6, Mr. Chairman, is a status report on your street lighting program.
Option 1 has been moved by Commissioner Proctor, seconded by Commissioner Deloge. I have no commissioners in queue to speak. Commissioner Dozier itching.
Mr. Chair, you're just moving pretty fast there, and I just wanted to catch up with where you were and make sure I didn't have any questions.
Option number 6. I'm sorry. Item number 6, option number 1. You good? All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries without objection. Item number 7.
Mr. Chairman, item 7 is a pay raise for the county administrator. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It was. I'm sorry, Mr. Order. Budget item number 7 is funding for Be the Solution pet overpopulation prevention activities.
Option 1 and 2 have been moved by Commissioner Lindley, and seconded by Commissioner Dozier. I have no more commissioners in queue to speak. All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We are finally on option number 8. Commissioners, I appreciate you guys getting through this pretty swiftly for me. Option number 8.
I'll slow down on this one
item number 8.
Mr. Chairman. This is establishing the maximum millage rates for the FY19 tentative budget. Commissioners, pursuant to Florida statute, this item seeks the board's direction in establishing the annual maximum millage rate for utilization of trim purposes as articulated. I'm going to skip reiterating what I've said to you earlier and just get right down to the recommendation. Commissioners, you will see this Budget, again, is balanced. The 19 budget is tentatively balanced with no increase in either the countywide or the EMS millage rates. And at your public hearings in September, these rates can only be decreased upon your action today. Staff is recommending options 1 and 2.
Mr. Administrator, is there a motion for staff recommendation? No, that's later. Staff recommendation been moved by Commissioner Deloge, seconded by Commissioner Dozier. Commissioner Proctor and Q.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the huge question here is this millage rate that we're setting next year, and the truth in something here. But Alan, could you help us with the truth of next year after the vote, and have we contemplated adjustments of whether or not our millage rate next year will increase, decrease, or will we be eliminating services, or is this the last time in our careers that we will see a millage rate here? What's the big?
Commissioner, if I may, last year you put in place a financial plan. As you remember, prior and during the recession, you made substantive cuts in the budget, and last year what the direction was in planning for the anticipation of the referendum was a two-part approach. One was to renegotiate the CRA agreement, take those dollars and put in reserve, and 2 was, if the referendum passes, was to contemplate a millage increase to offset the balance of the loss at that point in time. So yes, next year at this time, pending the passage of that, we'd be coming back with that recommendation to increase the millage rate.
2.04.
Yeah, by about 0.4 mils, correct.
Okay, so just wanted to make sure that as we're looking at this isolated, that we are anticipated sitting on the hot seat sometime soon next year.
Yes, sir.
And these seats will likely be a little hot, but I think that
Right.
I think that we need to begin to articulate and forecast that there's a level 4 storm approaching. And I think that the sooner we can begin to articulate it, we will have the voters themselves inducing this increase on millage next year by opting to support the state referendum ballot initiative to give a greater home reduction on taxable amounts of property. So if in our planning commissioners, I'm just suggesting that we begin to tout that as a reality. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Proctor. Real quick, Mr. Administrator and Board as well. This would not affect any changes we may want to make to what we've already budgeted, correct?
That's correct.
The only question I have for the Board, is there any consideration, as you know, we came in about 500,000 above the projected levels of funding or projected millage rate, projected income that we thought we were going to have. Is there any willingness of this Board to take that 500 and put it into CHSP, or do we want to continue as is? And my only question for you, Mr. Administrator, is if we do that, would it mean that we would have to use more fund balance?
It would necessitate the utilization of the fund balance that was contemplated in April, which was 2.5 as opposed to 2 million. And it would, the other part of your motion would require the Board to address your CHSP ordinance.
Because we said maximum level? Never mind. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, which is staff recommendation for options 1 and 2, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Commissioner Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's interesting you brought that up. I had wanted to reference that later this evening, likely in our conversation about Children's Service Council. It may be an option. I will rephrase that. It's been something that I've been considering, whether or not we want to put a little extra funding into that program, but it's a bigger issue, and I think it would take some time to work through. So I just didn't want to leave your comment hanging there. I would like to come back to that, depending on where we go with CSC later today. I also wouldn't mind saying we dug in a lot to those first few issues on our agenda, and I think that is great. As always, fantastic information. Appreciate the staff's efforts. This is a complicated process beyond anyone who is not sitting in your offices knows, I think, and we really do appreciate it. But I did want to just take a pause as we leave here, that we move through the last few items very quickly because, my opinion, they're very good programs. We've vetted them before. Street lighting to spay and neuter to Leon Works. These are all things that we've initiated, and particularly in the street lighting, we're doing a lot more for the unincorporated area, really anticipating the LIFE program coming online, and I just, that's why I kind of paused for a second when you were moving so quickly through number 6. I'm really excited to see that one moving and all of the types of issues that we're looking at in small infrastructure projects in the unincorporated area. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned until 3 o'clock. Yes, sir. Yeah, I think that's a food for lunch.
Mr. Kearney.
We're supposed to be here.
They have, let's
Well,
go
yes,
on
sir.
the